Blessed be, and welcome to this edition of Spirit of the Age. I am Miss Wolf Kitten, and I'm here to talk to you about what's going on. One thing that's happening, of course, is that winter is drawing to a close here in the Northern Hemisphere. It hasn't been much of a winter where I am, whether this is due to El Nino or global warming or happenstance, I don't know. We had some traces of snow on the ground, even as recently as the day before yesterday. Now, today, it was nearly 70, so ignore that. But we really have not had much snow at all, certainly not a normal snowfall amount. It's nice in the sense there hasn't been a lot to shovel or deal with walking through, and it hasn't been particularly cold. But it's also not so great because as much as we might hate the plowing and the shoveling and the driving through the stuff, our winter snowfalls also help to replenish the aquifer. I live less than a mile from the shores of one of the Great Lakes, so we don't think too much about drought around here. Go down to the end of the block, walk through the pedestrian tunnel, and it's water, water, water all the way to Canada. But our levels are definitely lower than they should be, and they have been for a few years now. Even without the crisis in Flint and other cities to remind us, access to clean, safe drinking water is just increasingly becoming a huge issue all around the globe. I'm not going to get deep into that right now, but it is something to be aware of because it's one of those issues that just affects everyone, no matter who you are or where you live. Another thing that's going on right now is that it's the new or dark moon. This means the moon is functionally invisible to us. Its shining face is turned towards the sun and away from the earth. In astrological terms, that means that the sun and moon are conjunct or sharing the same sign. In a couple weeks, when it's full, they'll be in opposition or 180 degrees away from each other on the wheel of the zodiac. I personally find it helpful to keep track of the moon sign and phase, as I find that it does affect me and it helps me anticipate how I might be feeling or how a particular event might turn out, etc. Now traditionally when the moon is full, it's when covens gather. The charge of the goddess instructs witches to gather once in the month, and better it be when the moon is full. In the mighty bush, the moon says, the best moon to be is the full moon. And it's when the moon is considered to be at the height of its powers and influence. However, I have found for myself that I have more of an affinity with the dark moon. I was part of a group for a while, way back when, that often spontaneously got together at the new moon, so much that we wound up calling ourselves Dark Lodge, but that is a tale for another time. Now, the new moon is considered to be a time of both endings and beginnings. I know for me, it's often a time when my energy is high and I can get a lot accomplished. For instance, I finally sat down and got this put together, and I've been dithering about this for weeks. And since the moon is conjunct with the sun right now, that means that both are in the astrological sign of Pisces, which happens to be my birth sign. And I have found that when the moon is in my sign, its effects seem to carry an extra oomph. So for me, this can mean that emotions might be running higher than normal, things might not go the way I'd like them to. But knowing that means that I can also look ahead and see, this might not be the best day to approach certain people, or things just aren't really likely to work out as well as I'd hoped. So maybe I shouldn't push too hard. But the moon changes signs every other day or so. So I also know that whatever the current influence is, it's going to pass soon and we'll be on to something else. Speaking of something else, I would like to talk a bit about very recent events in my world. If you watched the last podcast, you might remember me talking about the Winterstar Ball. There it is, Winterstar. I am part of a group that puts on a yearly summer festival called Starwood, and it's entering its 36th year. That just blows my mind. 36 years this year. I will definitely be talking more about that as the weather warms and I start getting more geared up for it. But for now, let's just say it's a sort of pagan hippie equivalent to Burning Man, and it's held down in southern Ohio, although it does predate Burning Man, I should just say. And for a number of years, we had Starwood in July, and then there was Winterstar in late February. The old Winterstar was held at this really lovely, very mid-century modern ski lodge resort in central Ohio that had this group of really nice cabins on a little cul-de-sac road that was just a short distance away from the main lodge. And it was always a favorite festival of mine because over the 4-day weekend, you would wind up establishing a little village in these cabins, and it was just really cool. During the day, you know, everybody, or most everybody, would be up at the lodge, and you'd have speakers like Robert Anton Wilson or Ivan Stang from the Church of the Subgenius. And then at dinner, you know, there were lunch and dinner breaks, and people would be in the vendors' rooms, and people would potluck together. And then at night, we would have concerts, or there would be a film, and there was a big Saturday night ritual happening, and then there were the cabin parties. And that was the best because in the dead of winter, you just feel so cut off from the whole summer festival lifestyle. Like the idea of drumming and dancing around a bonfire is just this distant memory. And the people that you would see every summer at, you know, sometimes more than once, depending on if you hit a couple festivals, they hit the same ones. But everybody was all gone back to wherever they came from. And so by February, you're just like deep in the Muggle world at a total remove from this whole other way of being until Winterstar. It was never as big as Starwood, but there were always familiar faces and folks you could check in or check out with, and of course there would be drumming and dancing. I could tell you tales, maybe someday I will, but if I start that, this will be an hour-long broadcast. So I will say that I often tended to look at Winterstar as kind of an omen for the coming year ahead. Are all the people you really want to see there this year? Did the Saturday night ritual feel transformative? And it often did. Is the party in cabin 17 mellow, or is it rocking hard, you know? Even in years when there was drama, and it happened from time to time, but I would always come back just feeling recharged and back in touch with things that mattered to me on this deep level. And from the best of them, I would come home just transformed, you know, having had this experience that really would broaden my worldview, and I always felt changed me for the better. But sadly, the lodge got sold and it was shut down for a while, and Winterstar ceased to be. And so just in the past couple of years, we have resurrected it in the form of this Winterstar Ball. A day-long event that's happening. It's held in the ballroom of this former ethnic hall that has turned into a happening music club here in Cleveland. And with only a single day, there's no real way to establish that temporary autonomous zone that would arise from the cabins. And so it hasn't managed to provide quite as deep of an experience, but it's still fun, and it's always my first show of the year as a vendor for the season. So this year, you know, I was looking forward to getting to see folks who I might not otherwise catch up with till July, you know, try out some new designs, maybe get some dancing in once the drums started up, and it, you know, started out that way. But unfortunately, the whole day got derailed midway through. One of our organizers suffered a pulmonary embolism and died shortly after being taken to the hospital. I mean, talk about like hitting the brakes. You know, here we're all looking forward to spending this celebratory day together, and then, whoa, damn. You know, and that could have caused everyone to just pack up and go home, and, you know, but instead, we all wound up forming this great big circle with nearly everyone who was present in it. And we joined hands, and we all owned together this heartfelt, wordless chant that we sent out to our fallen comrade and to the family that he's left behind. And when it was done and we broke away, I happened to look at my phone and I realized we had been oming at 4:20 in the afternoon, purely by coincidence, but maybe there was some larger design because it was so appropriate. And then people didn't pack up. They didn't leave. Instead, the community stayed. They were gathered together in this hall. And those who were arriving late to just walk in and hear the news had people there to offer them comfort. And, by early evening, the bands went on as scheduled, and it was followed by the drums and the dancing. And if you're not into that scene, you might be thinking like, drum circles, that's that hippie stuff. And yeah, you're right, it is, But rhythm is something that everyone, everywhere relates to. The exception of some ambient and experimental stuff, every type of music there is has some sort of beat underlying it. Maybe it's a slow one, maybe it's like techno, maybe it's metal, but there's always a beat driving it. And it's not surprising because our bodies are governed by rhythm. We breathe in, we breathe out, over and over, and our hearts beat and the blood pulses through our veins. And drum circles amplify this basic tempo. They pull the participants in. You don't just hear drumming, you feel it. And for myself, feeling that leads me to move. I love to dance. I have ever since I was a kid. And a good drum circle will get my hips swaying and my body's moving every time. And while this might seem a strange way to mourn to someone outside the community, it made sense in this context. The man who had died was deeply involved in making the weekly drum circle happen at this site. So what better way to honor his memory than celebrating his life with the things he loved? Now, I'm bringing this all up because the following week, which was just this past weekend, his memorial was held at a private Druid camp just outside the city here. And this was nothing like the kind of funeral that most people would think of. There was a service held and there were mourners gathered, but for one, it was largely outdoors. The service was entirely outdoors, in a clearing in the woods with some pavilions to guard against precipitation and seating. And as I mentioned at the top, it's still winter here. It was definitely winter then, even, and it's technically now. So the snow wasn't deep, but the grounds were covered with the dusting, and if there's snow, that means it's cold. But we're witches and pagans and druids, oh my, so there was also a very nice bonfire built. The fire tribe, who are responsible for the much larger fire that happens at Starwood every summer, came out and did their thing, and there's a barn on the property that was expanded with several large pavilions, chairs, tables, propane heaters, wood stove, so we weren't standing outside in 30-degree temperatures for hours on end. It wasn't warm, but if you were dressed for the elements, it actually wasn't too bad. And just being outside in the elements, the earth, if it's snow, if it's mud, if it's frozen mud under your feet, and the sky above you, and the trees, and there were owls. These owls, man, that hooted just as the service was getting started, which, I don't know. I've spent some time with birds, but not wild ones, so I'm not going to try and take any readings off of that. But, it was just this incredible experience. I guess I'll talk about that a little more in a bit here, or maybe not. Depends on how off script I go. But as is the case at every funeral, when the services were over, people brought food. So much food, because pagans are good at that, if nothing else. And beer, and wine, and mead, and whiskey, and coffee, and hot cider, and bottled water. There's probably pop if you drink that. But so just as we had the week before, there were also drums and a didgeridoo, and people were dancing around the fire, and of course I was among them. The turnout was just huge. It was bigger definitely than we'd had the week before, and it might have been as big as a true old-fashioned Winterstar. And at some point in the afternoon, I greeting friends I hadn't seen in years, some of them maybe even a decade. You know, I topped off my cider with a splash of mead, which is pretty tasty, by the way. And I had walked across the field to snap a picture of snow-covered woods and pond. And if I was more together, I would here be cutting in a picture to show you, but I'm not. So anyway, and I realized, oh, this is Winterstar. This is that gathering of the tribes, that coming together, even though it was in the celebration of a life of a friend and mentor, but it was also the reaffirming of a community. We are alive as the earth is alive, and we have the power to fight for our freedom. Just keep that in mind. We'll get to that too in a sec. And if I was going to take an omen off of that, I think it's going to be an interesting summer. I've already gone on far longer than I thought I would, so I'm not going to get into my theory about years that end in 7 or the energies that build up to them, but except for the fact that I did just say it. Next year is 2017, and if previous patterns hold, it's going to be something, but it doesn't just come out of the blue, so we're ramping up to it now, taking a test run maybe. And of course, we've got that whole election thing going on right now in this country too. And I'm realizing that by the time it is 2017, whoever it is that is the next president, it's going to be some sort of sea change. If it's Hillary, it's probably not going to be too different from where we've been, but literally anyone else, whether to the right or to the left, it's going to be something, like I said. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked to find out that I'm not Republican or a supporter of the conservative agenda in any way. What I am, well, you could draw your own conclusions. But, dogies, I just thought about it, and I looked at the calendar, and I realized the Republican National Convention is being held here in my hometown the week after Starwood. I am going to be thinking about that for a while, you bet. Right now, my quick reading is that this whole alternative world that the right wing has tried so very hard to legislate and bully and slander out of existence. And, you know, I wrote this, and I'm thinking, of course, of the world that I had just immersed myself in. But, you know, there are so many alternative communities out there, you know, and I'm part of several others besides this. And all of them, they've been trying to suppress and, you know, pretend like the fact is that there are more of us than there are of them. I honestly believe that, but, you know, they don't want anything to believe it or anyone. Well, okay, here, now I'm going off script. But what I was going to say is that I feel like even though, and of course anybody who's in a subculture, or almost anyone, is also likely not in the 1%, even though that's the biggest subculture of all. But, and, you know, we're not in the recession anymore, but that doesn't mean that people are doing well. I know a lot of people are still struggling just to keep the bills paid and keep the lights on and all of that. And so I had another experience this weekend in my dealing with my day job as a property manager that really brought a lot of that home to me. But never mind all that. But I still got this feeling that the subculture is not only alive, but doing just fine. Maybe even coming back stronger than it's been for a good long while. So, yeah, I'm drawing parallels between those two events. I think that, I don't know what exactly, but I mean, certainly in my life it's going to have an influence as to how I feel coming from, I used the term temporary autonomous zone before, and Starwood is definitely that. I mean, it is a whole another world that exists for a week, 10 days, sometimes a couple weeks, and, you know, it runs on a different time schedule, and it is a community in a way that you don't really experience if you live in the city. So, anyway, here I am getting all into the magical thinking here at Shay Wolfcutton. But I would like to invite you to think about these things too. About, you know, how does it feel? If you're watching this, you're part of a subculture too. How's it feel the group you're in? You know, do you feel like things are getting better or worse? Do you feel like people are drawing together? Are they remembering what it's like to be free and to be themselves and not be dictated to by the media and whatever. So if you have any ideas or comments on this that you would like to share or discuss, I would love to have people just drop me a line in the comments. If you don't want to leave it as part of a YouTube thread, let me know how to get a hold of you, and I'll be happy to get into some email chats with people. So anyway, that is plenty of heavy stuff, and I've really run on for quite a while. So I did finally get around, where'd they go, to putting some tomato seeds in a, ooh, it is wet, it just dripped on me. Okay, my tomato seeds are in a wet towel in a little mini greenhouse here. Mostly they were living on top of the fridge, but I was like, oh, I should bring them and show them off, so you don't have to just look at my face the whole time. But I didn't do it long enough ago that I have any little sproutlings to show you. I haven't even figured out what I want to plant where just yet. I have 3 row-style beds that are along the fences in my yard, which is not as much space as I might want, but then I don't have as much time to devote to it as I'd like either. So, it's probably just as well, I'm sure. So, I keep telling myself I should be thinking about that when I take the dog out in the mornings. Which is the point where we invited the dog to come in. Did the dog go away? We'll see if he'll come put his little face in here. I enjoy walking my pupster every day. Not only is it good exercise, but it's this nice, calm bit of time before I jump into the workday, and it helps me gather my thoughts. I'm a big fan of thinking ahead and planning things out. I don't always manage to do it, but I try. Come here. Here. Okay, we're going to make you look at this again. Look, you say, I don't know what I'm looking at. What are you doing, Mom? This is Marvin. This is my little guy. He's a Chihuahua key. He's my baby. So, and he's who I hang out with. We go chill out every day. We walk down to the end of the block, and Mom gets to, just kind of get myself together. Have some quiet time. It's not meditation in the sense of letting your thoughts fall away, but it serves something of the same purpose for me. And gardening does the same thing as well. If you can get outside and spend some time doing something quietly, things will often begin to unknot themselves for you. People spend so much time, every moment. There's a TV on in the background, and there's the iPod in the pocket, and something in the ear, and the radio's going in the car. And it really makes it hard to find that inner stillness and see where your thoughts can lead and get in touch with who you really are and what you feel and think. There's another thing to think about for next time, I guess. Anyway, that is about all for now. I'm not sure when I'm going to get a chance to jump on here again. The next one is likely to be pretty different from this. Not only are we just a couple short weeks away from the spring equinox, and I'd like to talk about that. We'll see if it happens. But I am personally just over a week away from traveling first to New York and then to Chicago to see Noel Fielding live. I squeak. If you found the link to this video on Tumblr, you already know exactly what I'm talking about, and everybody else is like, what? For those who don't know, you can follow this up by looking up Some Mighty Boosh, Luxury Comedy, Big Bad Quiz, Nathan Barley, IT Crowd, etc. on YouTube if you like. And I also was going to give a quick little shout out here. When I bought my tickets for New York, I got them from one of my Booshlers on Tumblr, and sent me this. Oh, I hope you can see this and it's not getting pointed out, but this sweet little drawing of Noel in his Loose Tapestries costume. Wait, is he the Decision or Vacuum Cloud? I don't know. They're going to take away my Boosh fan points. Well, I don't know what I'm trying to do this anyway. So thanks, Georgie. I actually am keeping your envelope, and it's what I'm saving all my tickets and my travel printouts and everything in. So it was very much appreciated. But anyway, if you don't get into this, you may even want to just skip the next episode entirely, because I will be a puddle of quivering fangirl, I guarantee it, next time I get in front of this camera. So until then, thank you very much for dropping by. I hope you sat through this whole thing. Don't forget to drop me a line in the comments if you want to talk about any more of this stuff in depth. I may not get to it right away, but I definitely will check them out and reply to you if you do. So till next time, Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.